Alex here with a legal nuts and bolts video on fraud. When it comes to fraud, just like with my last video, which was intentional infliction of emotional distress, you're going to have to take your personal opinion as to what it is, crumple it up, and throw it away. Do not look in the ordinary dictionary because that's not going to help you either. It's going to be much more likely that you'll find some guidance in Black's Law Dictionary because the legal definition is going to control whether or not you can win on fraud. Even better than that, I would recommend people look at their case law. In Nevada, we have case law that specifically defines the 5 different elements that a person has to prove to win on fraud. And I'm sure that the other states have something similar out there when it comes to how their state defines and deals with people who come to court claiming fraud. Most people are going to be shocked to hear that proving your opponent lied is just one of those 5 elements. The very first element, as defined in Nevada case law verbatim, is a false representation made by the defendant. Once you have proven that, you have got 4 more elements to prove. You're not even close to done. So this is kind of the stopping point, I think, when it comes to a lot of non-attorneys, especially the ones that are on my channel dealing with high conflict child custody cases, because they claim that their opponent lies, this and then and all the time, and they think that that's all they have to do to prove to win, on fraud. Or a lot of times people will bring it up in court and throw it around, and I kind of wince when I see that because I'm like, you don't realize what you're saying to the judge. You throw the word fraud around. You don't realize what it is you have to actually prove to get that to work. Not to mention the fact that you can't even really tangle that up with like a child custody or divorce action. That's a whole separate lawsuit for money damages. So it's just one of those things that I was going to do a video on finally after all this time of having been requested to do a video on fraud. I'm going to go ahead and actually do a video on it today, and it's probably going to discourage a lot more people than it's going to encourage people, but that's okay because that's kind of the purpose of these videos, is to let people know how a court actually sees certain types of claims that, while popular to most ordinary people who aren't attorneys, are actually quite difficult and complicated to bring to court. So if you've shown that your opponent has lied, congratulations, you have resolved 1 of 5 elements. So the second one is that your opponent had knowledge or belief that the lie or that the representation they're telling or making is a lie or false. There's also, I guess they call it insufficient basis for making a representation. So if your opponent is saying something and they have no basis to support that, you can still satisfy the second element if you can show that. That kind of is there, I think, to keep people from just making random claims and then saying, well, we didn't know it was a lie. We made a random claim. There was a chance it might have been true. It's not good enough. They have to actually have some kind of sufficient basis for making a representation. So yeah, if your opponent is able to show that they made a representation thinking it was true, they can defeat your fraud claim right then and there. Anyway, if you are able to prove that they lied and they knew they lied, then you can move on to element number 3, which is that there was a point to the lie. Specifically, they were trying to get you to act in some way, like maybe purchase a product, buy some insurance, something like that, or to refrain from acting in a certain way because you relied upon the lie. So if you show that your opponent lied in some way, and I'm going to use the word lie because I think that's what most ordinary people understand a false representation to be. It's basically a lie. If you show your opponent lied and that they knew that they were lying, but they didn't actually get you to do anything, then you shouldn't be in court. That you haven't satisfied element number 3, and you will lose on your claim of fraud. Number 4 is that you justifiably relied upon the lie. I'm not really sure what they mean by that. In fact, I'm not going to go any further into it because I don't know. If I was one of my viewers and I really was thinking about going after somebody for fraud, I would look a lot more into element number 4 of the fraud claim, because I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to say by that. I mean, what comes to mind is maybe what comes to mind is some kind of unjustifiable reliance upon the misrepresentation. Perhaps you were told by some kind of source that the representations were false, and there was some cause for you to reject and not rely upon them. I'm not sure. I don't want to guess. So definitely, if you're thinking about going after somebody for fraud, you need to look into, at least if you're in Nevada, need to look into the fourth element and see if there's some case law or some really good examples on what exactly it is that they mean by that. So the fifth element and the final element is you have to show that you suffered damages. And that's kind of one of the things that goes into any of these types of cases. If you can show that somebody did something to you that was wrong, but you didn't actually suffer any damages from it, you have nothing to bring to court. The court can't award you any kind of compensation because there's nothing to compensate you for. So, I mean, what that would come down to is, and I'm just going to rattle through all of those again, is that your opponent lied. They knew it was a lie. You were induced into doing something based on that lie, which you justifiably relied upon. But that all having been said, you still didn't suffer any damages for whatever random reason it is. I don't know, whatever details you want to tie to that type of situation. But if you don't suffer any damages, the fifth element is not satisfied and you cannot win on fraud. A couple of other things I wanted to mention in Nevada. Fraud is one of the 3 things that you can show to get punitive damages. I'm not going to go into that any further in this video. If you want to know what that is, look into my other video, Punitive Damages. It's basically more money on top of you having been compensated for the damages connected to the fraud. You also get to punish your opponent for having defrauded you, and you get to get additional monies that are directly connected to an amount that would sufficiently get them to knock it off. I could totally go into that in this video, but I'm resisting because I did a whole separate video on punitive damages. The last thing I wanted to mention is, it is my understanding that if you win a lawsuit for fraud, your opponent cannot bankrupt those damages off. That is huge because a lot of times in these types of cases, people will win and it's a big judgment for hundreds of thousands of dollars or $1 million or something like that. And their opponent can never pay that off, so they just go and declare bankruptcy. Well, my understanding is that you cannot discharge in bankruptcy some kind of court judgment against you for fraud. If I'm wrong, definitely post it in the comments below, let my viewers know. But that's what I've been told. I haven't actually looked into any case law on that because my knowledge of bankruptcy is so limited. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. If anyone has any questions, feel free to post them in the comments below. Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I don't think I did. But if you are here to find out what fraud upon the court is, watch my other video, Fraud Upon the Court. What I'm talking about in this video is a claim of fraud for money damages. Fraud upon the court is a very different thing, and it's used in a very different way. So I have another video on that. Please watch that video if that's what you came here for. So again, I will definitely be looking forward to comments and also emails on people who may want me to elaborate on this. And with that, I will see you guys next time.